Welcome to Fishing with Salmon Eye Charters. I'm going to give you some tips on how to reel in a salmon correctly, and this will make your experience just a little bit more enjoyable. I would suggest that you watch this video a few times, and that way when you come out on the boat you'll have things already ingrained in your head. A lot of times people get a little bit flustered when they get the first fish on the line, and they just want to reel like crazy and they forget everything we tell them. So I decided to do a little video, that way you could watch it ahead of time and everything else would work out great. So the first tip is always make sure you keep your rod tip up high. And when I say rod tip, I mean the angle of the rod going up. A lot of times when the fish hit, the first reaction is people want to lower their rod right away, and because the fish is pulling down. But it's very important to keep your rod tip up so that you keep a very good bend in your rod at all times. Tip number 2 is if the fish starts coming towards you, you're going to have to start reeling like crazy, and it's going to mean using your wrist. A lot of times people want to use their arm when they're cranking, but just use your wrist and you'll do fine. And sometimes you just got to reel like crazy, and that might mean, you know, really reeling like mad just to catch up on that slack line. And tip number 3 is when the fish comes in, you want to make sure that you leave about 10 feet between the fish and the end of the rod. So you can see here it's at about 8 to 10 feet. You don't want any more than that, and then you just bring the fish in close, and that way that we can either net them or gaff the fish. Tip number 4, if the fish wants to go underneath the boat, you want to be always ready to stick your rod tip down in the water if the fish goes underneath the boat. Monofilament line, when it's taut, if something touches it will break. So always be ready to stick your rod tip down in the water, at the same time keeping tension on the fish. Tip number 5 is always stay out near the edge of the boat. I always like to tell people, keep your knee planted out near the edge of the side. That way you won't have the temptation to walk back towards the middle. I know you probably want to help the guide get the fish, but the best way to get the fish in close to the boat is keep your rod tip up high and stick the butt of the rod towards the fish, and that way if the fish goes underneath the boat and we're out of sight, sometimes around the front of the boat, you can immediately stick your rod tip down in the water. If you're back here, you can't see where the fish is going. So the last thing is always keep your hands outside the boat. The reason being is if you keep your hands in here like this and the fish goes down, what's going to happen? Your rod's going to hit the side of the boat. So if you keep your hands out here, that means that you can stick your hand or your rod tip down underneath the boat if necessary. And also if the fish goes screaming around the end of the boat, you can bring your rod tip around the end of the boat like this and successfully bring in your first salmon. Or hopefully this will be your 10th salmon by the time you're practicing this one. But anyways, we hope you have a great trip with us, and thank you so much for watching. Please watch this a few times.